Hello. Ooh, I've got some side tone on so I can hear myself. Let me try and change that. Welcome, everyone, to Death Strike. And I hope you're ready for what should be a really, really cool show. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much to Marb for the music. I asked him for something Mortal Kombat-ish, something along those lines, and he delivered. If you want to go and find out what more music he has to offer, you can do so by going to soundcloud.com/Lizard Beach Waves. That's Lizard Beach Waves. More of his music on there, and it is in the chat for you now. So, it's funny because I was rendering those videos a long old time ago, and I've had them for ages ready to put into a video once I've got it set up, because obviously you have to render a lot of images to get there, so it took a while. Yeah, you've got a spark and whisper. See, some of these rounds don't even happen, but because I couldn't tell at the time, so I just made videos that I thought were cool. So there's a spark and whisper footage in there. There's Barkada and I think it's Nekahul. He's Nekahul. I'm gonna call him Nekahul. He's in there. Vega and Zeldor have a footage as well in the Crystal Cage. They're actually in the settings for some of the fights too, so hopefully you enjoy that. Thank you very much to Alex and Zach for their continued subscriptions. Thank you very much. So, we have a lot to do, folks. I mean a lot. And there's going to be so much to get through. So we should probably crack on. Are you ready? Alright. Prologue. It was once a utopia. The planet Eden was a peaceful and beautiful place. The greenery was exquisite. The architecture was something to marvel. Those that lived here created serenity. There were no wars, no anger or hatred, no greed or righteousness. The denizens of Eden led peaceful, fulfilled and happy lives. There was music, love and colour, until one day, grey battleships entered the atmosphere and hovered above all the major cities. The denizens of Eden prayed to their lord Zeldor and welcomed their aliens with open arms, and they destroyed them. They murdered, maimed, tortured and annihilated families. The elected leaders were strung up and hung from the once beautiful walls of the cities they led. Those unfortunate enough to survive the evisceration were bonded into slavery, mining the planet for its resources. This once beautiful utopia had become a barren, brutal, terrifying landscape. Where there was once laughter and cheers, there are now screams and cries. Where there was once light, there is only darkness. There is no longer joy or peace on Eden. Its denizens are now hopeless, terrified and tragic. They work day and night to survive as their once beautiful planet is terraformed by those who invaded. They are nothing more than slaves. They are tools. And their overlords? The Ashen. And with that, we are jumping straight into the very first match of Death Strike. The match is between Barkada and Victor King, and it takes place at the gas station. Fight! Does the King have the honour to defeat Barkada? Barkada grabs a tyre and launches it at the King, but the latter dodges. However, Barkada uses the distraction to run and leap off the fuel pumps. With the Ong back, the crushing forearm sends Victor stumbling back into a parked van. Barkada charges in looking for a flying kick, but the Royal evades and hits the King's ransom. The plated elbow strike and back fist bursts Barkada wide open. Victor follows up with a Mongolian chop, then spears Barkada through an upright litter bin. King springs to his feet. Groggily, Barkada is up second. The Royal makes his move, but Bakada counters. Here comes the limb barrage, the jumping knee climax sending Victor flipping backwards onto the concrete. Bakada grabs a fuel injector from the pump and smashes it violently into the head of Victor King, wrapping it around His Majesty's throat. The Honor Realm combatant starts to choke out his illustrious opponent with a rubber cord. It looks like Victor is going to choke to death, but he makes a desperate move. The Royal Decree, the running knee to the skull, staggers Barkada. King unwraps the fuel injector cord, points the injector at his opponent. Counter, restoration, sternum kick from Barkada. He puts his hands down Victor King's throat and pulls out his insides. MDK. Barkada plays with Victor King like a cat with a dead mouse, tossing it around the gas station like a rag doll, and Barkada is your first victor here tonight. Welcome to Death Strike. Victor King is dead. Woo! This is it, isn't it, folks? You have to remember, this is it. It's one night only. Everyone dies but one person. Let's put that into perspective. All of these characters, all of them, bar one person, will die tonight. Barkada, handled by Lester, and Victor King, handled by Brian. Unlucky Brian. We're moving on to the next chapter. Chapter 1. The Invitation. In a beautiful room, full of vibrancy and colour, a figure sits on a polished gold chair, watching what appears before him. On what could be a screen made of air, he looks down on a broken planet, destroyed. Fire rages, bodies are strewn throughout the street, and monstrous creatures ravenously cause carnage. His viewing is interrupted by a whispering sound that immediately draws his attention. He turns around and watches as an envelope falls to the ground as if out of nowhere. "Zantecha, is this you?" he asks, searching the room for the person of which he speaks. What looks like a woman steps into the room from another, with long blonde flowing hair, her beauty unmatched, despite the lower half of her face being covered by what appears to be a mask. Her complexion and face that we can see are flawless, as if she was created without a blemish. "No, darling. That has nothing to do with I," she replies, continuing about her business. He picks it up and reluctantly opens it. Inside is a black invitation with pink writing adorning the front. He reads it aloud to Zantecha. There's a tournament. A banquet of death. Fighters representing realms throughout the universe are cordially invited to the grand feast of flesh, Death Strike. Those who take part give their life to the tournament, and the stakes are real. Fighters will fight in brutal to the death matches, with only one winner moving on. There are no second chances. There is no way out. If you come to the feast, you'll either die or win. Zantecha, who was pottering around the room, has long stopped to listen. She looks at the air screen of visceral damage and shakes her head. "Is this some kind of joke, Zeldor?" she asks in horror. "Eden has been eviscerated by these monsters." The man, now identified as the god Zeldor, places the invitation back in the envelope. "Even before our world was destroyed, Eden would have failed to submit a warrior to this tournament, my love. I don't think this invitation serves that purpose. I think it has been delivered to enlighten us." Zantecha looks perplexed. "How so?" she asks earnestly. "Someone wants me to investigate this," he says, grabbing his hat from the table beside them. "And frankly, my love, the timing of this tournament is suspicious. I need to know what has been created now." She walks over to her husband, placing her hands around his shoulders. They touch masks, briefly, and lower their heads. "Be careful," she pleads. "You must return." Zeldor nods, and with a flash, he's gone. So, for those of you that don't know, Zeldor was Cal's character. This is my nod, really, to Cal. Couldn't obviously participate, but this is our way of making sure that Cal stays relevant, So if you wonder who Zeldor is or why this it hasn't been created by me, this is a character that I've utilized for that. So okay. But now we're moving on to the ballroom, in which Mortimer Sterling, portrayed by Alex, takes on Mathia, portrayed by Matt, and that's actually a picture of Matt, believe it or not. He submitted that to me, so, whatever. Fight! Can Meteor bring the Samba swagger to his opponent? Or will Mr. Mortimer steamroll his opponent with this cha-cha-cha? I love this already. Whoever wrote this did a banging job straight away. There's a clunk and a clang of metal banging against metal as the Gadget Man takes on the cybernetic soldier from Haindor. Sterling pulls out some kind of contraption to use against Meteor, but a grey smog starts to dissipate out of the Handorian, smothering the ballroom scene. Vent ill Asian. As the noxious gas clears, Sterling is left coughing up his guts. Out of nowhere, the sound of jet power. Rocket Man! Rocket Man! Meteor barrels into Sterling with a power-assisted dropkick right through the staircase. The inventor gets to his feet. He means fucking business now. Quick stepping his way out of Meteor's follow-up assault, Mortimer summons his wrist blade before waltzing close to his foe. Fine blade! Meteor throws himself backwards in evasive action. Sterling lunges again, but Meteor, like the matador in a paso doble, evades the charging ball. Hopefully I said that right. Hands on! Meteor ejects one of his fists, but Sterling blocks, summoning a defensive contraption that sends the fist back to its owner. Target assault. The fight mask unleashes a repeated attack on Meteor. The Haindorian blocks as a big orb of energy grows in his chest. Sterling scrambles for a new invention, but he's too slow. The end of all things. A powerful beam vaporizes the Mecha Master. Meteor puts Mortimer Sterling on the junk heap of life. Meteor advances to the next round of the tournament after vaporizing the Mecha Master Mortimer Sterling. He got Soldier Boy'd. Yeah, he did. He got Soldier Boy'd. True dat. Absolutely fucked up. Right. We're moving on in segment now. Sorry, chapter. It's chapter 2, and this one's called Introductions. Flash! A flash of lightning hits the concrete floor of a darkened forecourt with such ferocity that it causes it to almost shatter like glass. When the smoke from the impact dissipates, a human-like figure can be seen stood. He's wearing a large green and black hat, with a mask covering the lower half of his face. His name? Zeldor. He's landed in what looks to be a gas station forecourt, somewhere off-planet, somewhere we don't know. What are you, most honourable warrior? Where are you, most honourable warrior? He asks in a deep, stoic, raspy voice. From the shadows steps Barkada. I gathered the warriors I could find here in the battlegrounds, Barkada says, looking back into the shadows behind him. It's there that Brugh, Spark, Whisper, and Mordecai make themselves known. I'm certain of their honour. Zelda looks at them with a stoic nod. Thank you for coming, he says gratefully. I know this tournament and your participation may come as a shock. What I've learned is that 16 warriors from 16 planets of the galaxy have been invited to Death Strike. Whisper steps forward, his arms folded. He's blind, his eyes hidden behind black cloth. This is every being for themselves, he says ominously. All but one here will die by this competition. We cannot afford alliances. Brugh grunts. Why aren't you in the tournament? He grunts with a deep, throaty voice. Zeldor takes a deep breath. I wasn't invited, he admits. You're not even fighting? Spark says with surprise. A tiny voice from below carries weight. I'm here to find out why you must, Zelda announces. Something is awry and I can't put my finger on it. I need to investigate, and Mordecai suddenly and abruptly interrupts. I've been to the glass tower, he announces in admission. Everyone turns to face him, some not knowing of what he speaks. Zelda, on the other hand, he gulps. He knows. That confirms my fears, the god says with a hint of fear and tremble in his voice. Someone terrifyingly powerful wants us to fight to the death. What more do you know, Mordecai? The Dreamkeeper shakes his head in refusal and backs away. As all attention turns to him, he outright refuses. You've not looked into those terrifying eyes and seen your doom, have you, Zeldor? Mordecai reiterates. Both I and my brother have, and believe me, I've already said too much. Everyone looks to go their separate ways now, leaving Barkada and Zelda alone in the middle of the forecourt. I've traversed this battleground, and noticed some important locations on this map, Barkada says, handing it to Zeldor. I hope it yields the answers you seek. The god takes it, nodding with a thank you. Only as Barkada steps away, the blonde flowing locks of someone watching nearby can be seen. And with that, we head to the Crystal Cave for Zagathor versus Mordecai. Fight! Can Earth's representative and the Guardian of Dreams defeat the Dark Wizard of Quart? Mordecai charges full pet at Zagathor, but the Quartian, that's a hard word to say straight away, well, to read and then say, but I think I got it, uses her magical power to sweep the Guardian of Dreams' feet from underneath. Mordecai gets back to his feet, but more magic from Zagathor, but Mordecai quickly teleports. The gatekeeper reappears behind the Dark Wizard. Wish fulfillment. Backflip suplex into a pile driver. Mordecai lifts Zagathor up and tosses him across the cage, destroying a pile of growing crystals. The Guardian arms himself with a spear-like crystal and launches it at the chest of his opponent, but the crystal freezes in midair. Zagathor has caught the missile with his magic. With a twitch of his wrist, the Quartian shatters the crystal into 1,000 pieces. The Dark Wizard waves a swivel gesture, and the shards of the crystal turn to face Mordecai. Zagathor pushes his palm forwards, and thousands of crystal shards shoot towards Mordecai, penetrating his body. Crystal, steel, wind. Mordecai staggers backwards. Zagathor conjures more magic, uses his power to lift Mordecai into the air and slam him hard into the ground. Lifting him several times, Zagathor smashes Mordecai into the hard surface of the cave. The astral hammer has obliterated Mordecai. Zagathor wants to conquer and claim. The Dark Wizard conjures a spectral axe. Teleport. Mordecai locks in the Cobra Clutch. No. Zagathor pivots and the spectral axe cuts the gatekeeper in half. Conquered and claimed. Zagathor levitates Mordecai and bathes in his blood after tearing him in two with his vile magic. Zagathor, handled by Chris, defeats Mordecai, handled by Damo, and goes through to the next round. Earth's warrior has been destroyed. And if you thought we had time to rest on our laurels, we don't. Because we go into another match. The Crystal Cave may be covered in viscera, but Hayden, his character Spark, takes on Zach's character Boro Tabor, and we are fight. Deep inside the Crystal Cave stand Spark and Boro Tabor, ready to fight for the honour of their realms. Boro Tabor immediately charges at Spark, looking to blindside the Ion Wizard with a heated assault, but Spark manages to dodge it at the last minute. Boom! Spark catches the Genocidal Prince with a headbutt, giving a sliver of the energy pulsing through him in the process. It gives the Ion Lizard an opening to unleash an onslaught of energy, building momentum as he dashes up Boro Tabor's body onto his shoulders. Zap zap! Boro Tabor takes a lightning bolt right to the head. It immobilizes him as Spark drops him with a modified stunner into the hard, crystalline floor. The energy is still pulsing through the Ion Wizard as Boro Tabor gets back to his feet, only for Spark to throw a ball of energy. Energy pulse, no! Glacial clone! A statue of ice crumbles from the attack, revealing Boro Tabor with a smirk on his face as he runs at Spark with a flaming kick right to the jaw. Flash Inferno! The power of the kick sends Spark flying into one of the large crystals. This gives Boro Tabor an opening as he summons a wicked snowstorm. The crystal cave just become an ice prison. Boro Tabor cups Spark up with whips of pure flame before melting him. The ice cold maelstrom, with the Ion Lizard nothing but a melted mess. Boro Tabor overcomes Spark to advance, and Boro Tabor heads to the next round. Zach apparently can't capitalize his name for shit, but he can pick up the win. Whew. We're motoring along, guys. Tell me if you want me to slow down, but with 15 matches and 5,000 words of story, I think we're probably best to get moving, don't you? If the show takes an hour and a half, I think that's a good shout. Okay. 2 members of the good guys down, that's true. Chapter 3, A God Among You. In a large fiery underground pit, a large patch of dried molten lava covers the ground. It's hot. Piping hot, in fact. The heat in the air is almost suffocating. Ivoko, Nakihual, Ikita, Ik, and Lord Vega stand in a circle, awaiting the arrival of someone in particular. Their chatter soon silences as the footsteps of a woman approach. She's wearing a large cloak that covers most of her facial features, keeping her identity under wraps from the competitors. You've been chosen to fight for your realm, she says stoically, calmly and sternly. Cut the shikta. Victor Vega. Vega says powerfully, "Tell them what I spied." There you go. Vega was the one spying the earlier conversation between Zeldor and the good guys. Announcing himself as a competitor who spied upon the group from earlier, he folds his arm angrily. "Very well," she agrees. "There's a god among you, planning to usurp your position in the tournament. Should he have his way, he will murder you all." They look at one another, each of them with their own angered or concerned expression. All but Ivoko, whose mask hides his agenda. He soon makes it clear where he stands. "You thought I'd join you in a murder of a god?" Ivoko queries, leaning on his ginormous hammer made from the shadow of Vega. "I won't be manipulated by you, mysterious woman. These fools may scare easily, but I can see the agenda in your shadow." Everyone turns their attention to him. "You foolish shadow," Nekihuao grunts. "You know nothing of what you speak." "There is a god, and he is colluding with those in the tournament he considers morally acceptable," Vega scoffs. "Have you had your meeting yet, Shadowmaker?" Ivoko doesn't say anything. "I thought as much. Why don't you go back to the Shadow Realm where you belong, slave? Let the free and powerful discuss the murder of a god," the Sky Prince says with a dismissive wave. There's a moment of silence before Ivoko swings his hammer towards Lord Vega, who swivels and ducks underneath it. The Dark One runs towards him, vanishing mid-run, only to rise out of Vega's shadow. Ikita, though, roars a guttural yell, slinging a web at him that immediately drags him across the realm towards her. "Get over here!" she sneers. The mysterious woman quickly makes her exit back into the shadows as Ikita hits the ceiling and drops upside down to meet a trapped Ivoko. "You're going to make a tasty treat," she hisses somewhat seductively. Ivoko struggles. Whoosh! Just then, a figure flies through the screen in one quick motion, scooping Ivoko up and flying him away. It's Draco. The Lizard Prince flies Ivoko away towards their fighting grounds, the crash site, landing them both there in the middle of it. Using his claws, he slaps his hands down the web, breaking Ivoko free. "You're my opponent," he growls angrily. "I will be the one to end you." Ivoko puts his hand out, watching as his hammer flies into it, connecting with a thud made from the shadow of Draco. "You should have let her devour me, you cold-blooded fool," Ivoko replies. "That mistake will be your end." And we go straight into the match. Draco, handled by Mel, at the crash site, versus Ivoko, handled by Lena. Fight! Death Strike continues here as reptilian savagery faces off against the shadows themselves in the ruins of a long-forgotten spacecraft. But no would-be alien will beam up the loser from their ultimate fate. The Shadowmaker's footsteps crunch along the forgotten gravel, his wary eyes scanning the site for his opponent, not knowing that Draco is sneaking up behind him until a single crunch warns him moments before the reptilian leaps. Ivoko ducks under the attack as Draco rolls to his feet, leaping forward with a frenzy once more, only to be grabbed by his shadow and dragged into the ground below. Draco tries to struggle, but the many hands hold tight as the Dark One rushes forward, delivering a mammoth spear that nearly crushes the reptilian's ribs and sends both competitors tumbling down the gravel as they land hard on the abandoned spacecraft. Ivoko tries to mount Draco to continue the punishment, but wild swiping from the reptilian sends him backing off in a hurry. Acid spray to the face. Draco caught Ivoko by surprise with that, the burning projectile seemingly blinding the Dark One as he staggers back in pain. Draco rushes forward once again, this time with his claws extended, and as he leaps through where Ivoko once stood, because the Dark One suckered him in, vanishing out of nowhere, only to return behind him, stunning him with a knee strike to the back of the head before delivering a brutal kick to the back of the thigh that sends a sickening crack throughout the wasteland. Draco screams out in pain, but Ivoko isn't done. He grabs the reptilian by the waist before suplexing him into the alien steel. Ivoko may have well broken Draco's skull there, but the reptilian manages to stumble up to one knee. As Ivoko raises his arms, the shadow behind reptilian transforms into the Dark Hammer. He raises it high. Wham! Smashes it square into the chest of Draco, vanishing him into the darkness. Fatality. The Shadowmaker sends the reptilian to a terrifying end in the Shadow Realm as he moves forward in the Death Strike tournament. Your winner is Ivoko. Not many first round matches left, folks. Not many at all. let's move on to the next one. Ikita Ik versus Whisper at the Old Shack. Fight! Deep in the woods, another battle arises between the feared cruel mistress and the wise and prophetic Whisper. Will the predator find another prey, or will she be just another soul to guide to a better tomorrow? We fade in on the old shack, no sight of the competitors, yet we hear the cracking of wood and muffled grunts and yells coming from inside before a figure flips through the doors, moments before they're splintered in half by the pounding of 4 massive legs tearing through them. A spiked foot comes within inches of the shepherd's abdomen before embedding into one of the porch posts, stunning Ikita enough to fall prey to an essence strike. The soul staggers the cruel mistress back, destroying the post and damaging her pincer as black blood begins to slowly pull down her leg before she roars out a terrifying scream. But Whisper focuses, calms his senses. Ikita rushes up the wall, leaping over the balcony before trying to drop down behind the soulborn. Whisper avoids a skitter, the acid melting another of the porch posts, but it was faint as the thick web begins to cover Whisper, dragging him in close to the jaws of the ultimate predator. Spectral port. Whisper manages to throw out a soul across the porch, damaging another post as he does. Ikita unknowingly chomps down right as the soul swaps places, the spectre exploding in her face. I can't even speak. Taking out the last post as the balcony collapses on her. Whisper just managed to slip out of the way as he raises his hands. Spectral arms and claws lift up the fallen wood of the stunned Ikita before they begin to tear her limb from limb. Bleeding out and helpless, the cruel mistress can only watch as her soul is torn from her body by the soulborn. Fatality. The shepherd delivers another soul to judgment here tonight as he continues his quest to guide all these souls to a better place. And your winner is Whisper. Alright, moving on. This might be the second, maybe the second to last, second or third to last, I think, if anyone's keeping count of how many first round matches we've had. How many have we had so far? We've obviously just had Whisper and Ikita Ik. We've obviously had Spark. He's had Mordecai. Ivoko. Yeah, I think maybe one or two more after this. Brug versus Lord Vega. Brug. God, I need to learn how to speak tonight. Handled by me. And Lord Vega handled by Jesse. Fight! Can the Death Boar turn the Prince's sky red, or will Lord Vega bring home the bacon for his realm? Brug charges at Vega, looking for a big shoulder tackle, but the veins flips out of the way. Vega flips off the wall, tries to stab his claws into the butcher's back, but Brug pivots and clocks him with a hook. The war boar lifts the vein and repeatedly slams him into the ground before tossing him away. Ground meat. Brug lines up his opponent. He charges in looking for the spear, but Vega evades and counters. Beautiful severance. Brug staggers away bloodied. Vega runs in, claws unsheathed. I wanted to know what beautiful severance is. You got to tell me. Vanity Fair. What is that? Brug rolls away and Vega's claw is caught in a wall. Brug lifts Vega upside by the legs. Meat locker. The warboar is tenderizing the Sky Prince with those repeated body punches. Brug lets Vega down and sinks his teeth into Vega, tearing away a chunk of flesh. The big bite. The Death Boar spits out the chunk and chortles in delight. Vega the Vain roars that his perfect form has been blemished. He front flips over the war boar, jams his claws into the pig's back, and German suplexes him to their depths. Back/suplex. Vega is seething and he's not done. He runs at Brug, trying to jab his left claw into the boar's heart. Hog at a buffet. Brug explodes out of nowhere. A ferocious, high-velocity spear that literally cuts Lord Vega into 2 parts. Blood sprays everywhere, but it's a perfect feast for the Death Boar, who survives to progress. Your winner is Brug. GG's to Vega, and thanks to everybody who did send in a judge. I think there was only 5 or 6 of you that actually voted in the end. Try and remember who those people are. But thank you for voting. Unlucky Jesse. Good old Chalk. Okay. We're on the Nether Bridge now for Nekihual, which is handled by Rob, and Daedric, which is handled by Jordan. Fight. Two survivors go to war tonight to gain a measure of immortality. One fights for himself, one fights for the memory of his race. But which man, or beast, will gain what he desires? Both men step foot on the nether bridge, smelling the fumes of death and feeling the oppressive heat as Nekihual looks down at the certain death that lies below. His curious nature almost costing him as Daedric has already drawn his bow, raining down arrow after arrow at his larger foe. Razor-sharp arrows strike the Aztecan's flesh, but they barely bother him, rushing forward before spearing the elf high up into the air. Daedric goes flying, but doesn't hit the stone until he's gripped by the ankle in midair and thrown hard into the burning stone bridge. He screams out in pain, swiping out with his knife, but only manages to deliver superficial wounds. Nekihual smiles from the pain before underhooking him and delivering a brutal knee that may as well crushed his ribs from the blood pooling at his mouth. Daedric struggles to his feet, refusing to give in, but he finds a mammoth hand clutching his throat as Nekihual tries to drain the life from him. But Daedric slashes his knife right down over the Aztecan's eyes. Goo and viscera splash the stone as steel slides through the ocular like butter. Nekihual screaming in pain, but only for a moment before that same knife finds its way into his neck, tearing open a large vein. The larger man stumbles on his feet, blind and losing blood, as the lass sizes him up before kicking him off the bridge. Nekihual screams in pain, his blood splattering onto the lava floor before he himself splatters onto the ground below, a crispy, broken corpse. Fatality. Daedric survives his war with the Aztecan tonight, sending him down to the fiery pit below and getting one step closer to immortalizing his race. Your winner is Jordan, aka Daedric, and he advances to the next round. We are back to the story now, folks. We are back to the story. Chapter 4. The Hall of Planets. I hope you're ready. It's a big one. The Hall of Planets. A large museum left in ruin and decay. Zelda walks through the shattered glass doors into what's left of the lobby, stepping on broken glass as he does. He heads towards the main hall, where monuments exist of worlds that have long been destroyed. It's here that he stands, utterly stunned. There have been so many worlds before ours. So many planets have existed and ceased to exist in this very universe. Where Eden now sits, a world called Terminus used to be. Zelda wipes the dirt away from the plaque, revealing information about the planet that once existed in place of its own. Now gone. He continues to walk the main hall, soaking in the information set out before him. There are 16 statues of current planets. They're all here, all represented by someone in this competition. All bar his. There's an anomaly, he says to himself out loud. Earth, the Abyssal Plane, Medville, Machinima, Honor Realm, Ataxia, the Broken Spire, Reptilia, Quart, Ionica, Sky Realm, the Shadow Realm, Skyair, Boswig and Arcana, Zelda says, walking past each planetary statue. But that's only 15 planets. Eden makes the 16th, but we're not represented. Who here shouldn't be? With that in mind, he notices something at the corner of his eye. It stops him dead in his tracks. What's this? He muses. Broken into many pieces, a pair of 17th and 18th statues barely exist at the end of the row. The planets have no name or information, as if they've been wiped from the Hall of Planets entirely. Arrgh! Suddenly, the roar of what sounds like a freight train rushes towards Zelda, pouncing him through the nearest wall inside the Hall of Planets. He immediately hits a deck, bouncing away with the concrete explosion that followed his impact, an impact that took him outside. Slowly but surely, Zelda gets himself back to his feet, dusting himself off. He looks towards his attacker, who steps through the hole in the wall, growling with intensity. You! Zelda screams angrily, his first real sign of emotion. It's Meteor, and Zelda seems to know him. You're the Conqueror, Zelda says knowingly. I watched what you did to Eden. I watched you butcher my denizens without so much as a shred of remorse. And now I'm here representing Eden, the Ashen's chosen warrior, Meteor replies with a growl, still not showing any emotion. That's right, Meteor is an Ashen. He's a very Ashen, in fact, that Brobeck spoke of sending at Ring of Dreams. Everything now makes sense. To us, at least. Zeldor begins boiling with rage. His arms soon become covered in electricity, firing up and down him like neurons firing. You took my planet and enslaved my denizens. You destroyed a beautiful and peaceful world, the enraged Zeldor roars at him. And now I'm going to destroy you. Meteor laughs. With a grunt, splutter, and a groan, he actually laughs. You're angry with me? He says, as if he's surprised by that. You're a god, you weaselly, pus-infected maggot. Where were you to stop us when we invaded your world? You could have ended our invasion. You could have stopped it, but you didn't, did you? Zeldor, now almost covered from head to toe in electricity, suddenly simmers. What Mathia said must have hit him like an arrow to the heart, because suddenly he's weakened. He falls to one knee, clutching at his chest. I couldn't, he stammers. As a god, I couldn't intervene. I could have saved them all, but I was forbidden. Ha! Meteor bellows. You gods and your codes. If only all of you followed them. The god looks at him, confusion in his eyes. What does he mean by that? Now it's time to die, god, Meteor says, cracking his hands. Whoosh! Just then, in the nick of time, Barkada arrives. You refuse to fight with honor, he says to Meteor with a shake of his head. But I'm your next opponent, and I will make you wish you had. Meteor chuckles. Flush! And Zeldor is gone. But we are at the Hall of Planets for the second round match between Barkada and Meteor. Fight. Round 2. Fight. Barkada draws his sword immediately and holds it steady in front of him. Slowly circling around Meteor, hasn't moved 1 inch. Barkada lunges at Meteor and strikes, but Meteor swats Barkada. Oh my god, Dean, Jesus Christ. Meteor swats Barkada's sword out of his hands. Meteor follows up with a massive palm strike that knocks him backwards into a marble statue of a nondescript planet, the statue crumbling from the force, and Barkada crumbling to the floor in pain. Barkada is handled by Lester. As Barkada manages to get to his feet, jets of air begin to forcefully whistle out of Meteor's ventilation shafts, shooting him towards Barkada at high speed with a drop kick. Rocket Man! Into the marble statue. Barkada ducked the missile drop kick and steps up to Meteor, who is rising from the rubble. Uppercut, right hook, kick to the leg, rolling Kopu kick. Meteor is stunned, and Barkada immediately hops to his feet and grabs the big man's head into the Thai plum. Elbow strike, overhead elbow, knee strike to the head. Barkada jumps up to finish his combo, jumping knee to the face, limb barrage. Meteor slowly lowers his head and gazes down upon Barkada. That barrage barely did any damage. Before Barkada can make a move, he notices a funny smell and sniffs the air for a moment. A weird grey smog wafts through his space like Matt farted, and it seems like every move Barkada makes is suddenly in slow motion. He lifts his leg up to crane kick Meteor square in the chest, but it's too late. Hands on! Meteor's hand just ejected at high speed and damn near knocked Barkada's head off. Barkada is down, and not in a good way. He's crawling, grasping for anything he can as Meteor stalks him from behind. Meteor is out for blood, but Barkada spots something a few feet away that gives him hope. His sword. Barkada reaches out towards it. Stomp! Meteor stomped down hard on Barkada's hand. Barkada lets out a yelp as Meteor twists it in sadistically. His hand must be broken as it has gone limp, but his hand is the least of his worries now. Meteor grabs Barkada by the top of his mask and lifts him up into the air. Energy begins to gather in an orb in Meteor's chest, and Barkada reaches out for his sword one last time as the orb's brightness reaches a crescendo. A bright beam is emitted from the orb into Barkada, the end of all things. Barkada is obliterated. All that remains is a tuft of his mask as Meteor advances to the semi-finals. The Ashen is still in the fucking tournament. Holy shit. So, let's take a break just for a second and summarize what we know. We know that Zeldor is the god of a planet called Eden, that the Ashen invaded. We know that Meteor is the chosen warrior of that planet. He's representing Eden here tonight because Eden doesn't have a warrior after being invaded by the Ashen. And that fired. Naturally. That is the story so far. Zeldor is still trying to figure everything out. Maytheor said some things that have definitely struck a chord with him, so we'll have to wait and see where and how that goes. Any questions whilst we're here? Any questions about the story that I may be able to answer before we move on and take a gander at what's next? There are 3 more of these second round matches before we get to the semi-finals. Maytheor is the Mega Hill, definitely the big bad guy. I haven't seen Jesse. I hope he's doing well and he's watching. I haven't seen him in the chat. Just having a look and see who's around. What's the question then, Alex? What you got, buddy? Well, there's 3 more second round matches to go. We'll have to wait and see. But before we get any further into the story, we are going straight into another match. It's Stairway to Hell. It's Zagathor, handled by Chris, versus Evoko, handled by Lena. Who's ready for this one? Round 2. Fight. Zagathor wastes no time, drawing his sword as he sprints towards Evoko. Zagathor stabs at the Shadowmaker. The blade is mere inches away from his chest, but Zagathor is stuck in place. A multitude of hands have emerged from the darkness, and his shadow grabs Zagathor by the ankles. Darkness beckons. Evoko parries the blade away during the distraction and charges full blast towards him. Spear onto the platform. Zagathor's armor creates a crater in the bricks from impact. Evoko straddles his foe and lays into him vicious left and right hands, punches that are slightly caving in Zagathor's helmet with each blow. Evoko follows up with a stiff kick to Zagathor's midsection, and then another. Zagathor's armor is barely protecting him from Evoko's might. The Death Knight of Quark can only crawl away from the abyss, scratching and clawing his way step by step up the stairway to hell. Evoko is in pursuit though, and drops a karate chop on the back of Zagathor's neck and immediately stifles his movement. Evoko bends down to pick up his opponent and is met with a sharp, ironclad elbow to the face and knocks him back a step. And when Evoko comes back to attempt a second kick, Zagathor pivots into an attack. Junsado ground kick. Evoko is knocked down to the edge of the platform. Zagathor springs up and pounces on Evoko before he can regroup. The Dark Wizard shoves an elbow into the Dark One's back and pushes his head over the side. Below them lies a pit of spikes that would mean certain death if one were to tumble off the side. Zagathor laughs as he pushes Evoko inch by inch beyond the edge. Evoko's upper body nearly completely off the platform. Zagathor pushes Evoko one final time, but Evoko has vanished. Zagathor glances to the left and right. He can't see him. It's because he's behind him. Knee to the back. Zagathor arches his back in pain, dropping to his knees as Evoko puts himself in position to land a deadly blow. Brutal kick to Zagathor's head. From the shadows, Zagathor drops off the ledge. Evoko drops to his knees in exhaustion, having barely escaped certain death. He leans over the edge and looks down. Zagathor is sprawled over a sea of spears. Blood is gushing out of every armor chink. Zagathor is dead, and Evoko advances to the semi-finals along with Maytheor. Pit fatality. Woo! So we know 2 of our semi-finalists. We don't know who's facing who, but we know that Maytheor and Evoko are in the semi-finals. And we're moving on to Chapter 5, From the Ashes. Exhausted and mentally broken, Zeldor saps himself to the reclusive darkness of the battle world. He's in desperate need of recovery. As he takes his seat in the pitch black, blue tears begin streaming down his face. He watched as the Ashen tore his once peaceful planet apart, destroying everything he watched his denizens create. Zeldor then watched as they tore those same denizens apart. They mutilated, enslaved, and tortured them. He did nothing. Not because he was evil or sinister, not because he enjoyed what he watched. He didn't intervene because gods aren't allowed to. Gods across the universe are built with strict instructions not to meddle in their creation's existence. Sometimes many gods would come together to make stronger bonds to this end, and no one in their right mind would break it. Zeldor watched Eden become a hellscape, and he did so because he believed he couldn't do anything to stop it. What Maytheor said had struck a chord. Were there gods in the universe that... oh my god. Were there gods in the universe that broke this rule? Were there gods in the universe that intervened when they shouldn't have? What does Mathia know of gods and why? The pain felt in his soul soon became questioning and inquisitive. He began to realize why he was there. He began to understand just what exactly was happening with Death Strike. But to confirm it, he needed to speak with someone. So, yeah, as you probably noticed now, that unfortunately, quite brutally, Zeldor did nothing to protect his planet from the invasion of the Ashen, thinking he couldn't help. And we all know that Yahweh stopped the apocalypse on Earth. Big things, big things. And as you can see, if you weren't sure and didn't know, Death Strike fits into our story. But now, we're going to the gas station where Brugh takes on Whisper in the third of 4 second round matches. Round 2, fight. Brugh brandishes his meat cleaver as Whisper takes in the smell of sweet, expensive petrol emitting from the pumps. Oh. Brugh charges Whisper with his cleaver, but the shepherd sidesteps the butcher's advances. Brugh's cleaver gets stuck in the gas pump, and before he can pull it out, he's met with a mule kick to the face. Stumbling backwards, Brugh trips over the gas pump line and Whisper follows in blind pursuit. Whisper tosses what can only be described as a soul of the big pig, and it explodes on impact. The gas station just went up in flames, and the poor piggy is getting cooked like a big, meaty slab of bacon. Brugh squeals and rolls around in an attempt to extinguish the flames, whilst Whisper stands in wait. Spotting a water hose on the exterior of the gas station, Brugh scuffles over to it and douses himself in some high-quality H2O. Again, though, Whisper throws a soul out towards him, and then he teleports right next to Brugh. Spectral port, high kick to Brugh's face. Brugh crashes through the shop window into the convenience store as Whisper continues to stalk the pig. Out of desperation, Brugh tosses a Snickers bar at Whisper, which he dodges, followed by a high 5-hour energy, whatever, that plunks the soul ball between the eyes. Then Brugh scatters some M&Ms on the floor, which Whisper briefly trips over before catching himself. But a moment was all that Brugh needed. Big bite. Brugh took a chunk out of Whisper's forearm. Whisper is reeling now, but Brugh isn't letting up. He picks up Whisper overhead and slams him into the counter, and then slams him into the drink fridge, and then into the ground multiple times for ground meat after throwing him through the doorway of the garage. Whisper has been tenderized. Brugh steps through the doorway and picks up the Ford F-150 that's currently being worked on and slams it down on Whisper. That must have flattened him. Brugh wipes his brow and rips open the garage door, walking away from the wreckage in probable victory. But the pickup truck is floating in midair. A horde of souls have shielded Whisper from being crushed to death. It's an ethereal blonde. Whisper... Sorry, I'm going to cough. Motions his hand, and the soul flings the truck towards Brugh, and it crashes on top of the boar, pinning him underneath. Brugh is crushed, and he's pleading, begging for Whisper to finish him. Whisper motions the soul horde towards the fallen piggy, where they enter his mouth and rip at him, clawing him inside out, until he is dead. Whisper absorbs his soul to the herd and advances to the semi-finals with Avoko and Mathior. And well done, buddy. We are moving on to chapter 6. This one is Skyer. Daedric sits preparing carefully for his upcoming battle, which will be, by the way, the final second round match before we know our 4 semi-finalists. He's in great ponderance, dwelling in the caves beneath the nether bridge he once fought. As fire rages around him, he closes his eyes. It's then that Zeldor appears before him. The Lightning Lord approaches cautiously as Daedric opens his eyes, a skittish look on his face. Friend, I have not come to hurt you. Zeldor assures him with a raised hand in white flag. What do you want? The Elven replies curtly. Zeldor takes a moment to compose himself. He knows that what he has to say may invoke a reaction. I met a monster called Mathia today. Something he said had struck a chord with me, he admits. Please, tell me of Skyer. There's another pause. This one is completely down to Daedric, who lowers his head almost shamefully. He's upset, and seemingly has every reason. Zeldor approaches, taking a seat next to him and placing a hand on his shoulder. It's okay. You can tell me, he says calmly. Skyer was a beautiful planet. A world in which the elven race lived happily. It wasn't peaceful, but it was ours. We survived wars, we built a society, and we had families. He again lowers his head. Zeldor prompts him with a, And then they came, he grunts angrily. The Ashen. They destroyed and mined my planet for resources. They enslaved my people and drove them to near extinction. That's what Zeldor thought. That's exactly what he thought. I'm sorry, Daedric. I know this must be tough. But if your planet has been nearly exterminated, why are you here? He asks. I'm the last, he admits honestly, with a sense of sadness. I'm the last elven alive. The Ashen abandoned my planet and left me alive on it, thinking me dead. When I received the invitation, I was the only one left to take it. Rumour has it that they left me alive to tell their tale. So I'm making it my mission to immortalise and honour my people instead. Zeldor bows his head in respect. You're an admirable elven, Daedric. But I think I know why Death Strike is happening. I think the Ashen are holding this competition to defeat the universe's best warriors so they can invade the entire galaxy. Daedric looks up, his eyes widen. When they left my world, they spoke of their missions to Eden and the godless Earth. We can't, he says angrily. Zeldor nods. They've already taken my planet. We won't, he promises. We won't let that happen to anyone else. Another big segment. As you see, they're building now, segment upon segment, as we're getting the story. So, Skyer, Daedric's planet, was also invaded by the Ashen. They killed everyone on it. Except Daedric, who is here to tell the tale. And now, he's here to fight, because we're in the rave. Daedric versus Borotaber. Round 2, fight. The dance floor shakes with each bump of the bass, strong enough to topple over any normal man, but Daedric and Borotaber stand tall on either side of the dingy, dark room. Strobe lights mask the movements of each man as they work their ways towards another, while lasers provide a distraction that's just waiting to be taken advantage of. Borotaber moves at a deliberate pace and lunges at Daedric, but no one's home. Borotaber pauses before something hits him from his left, jabbed by Daedric, only for Borotaber to shoot an ice shard towards him. Again, no one's home. Something smacks Borotaber from the right now. Another jab. So he shoots another shard that again inevitably misses Daedric, who swiftly dodges into the shadows. That's where he's fighting him. Zigzag. Daedric drops Borotaber from behind. The genocidal prince is showing his frustration. He can't find him to fight him. The flames on half his body are raging like an inferno, but this unintentionally lights the room, and out of the corner of his eye he just managed to see Daedric lunging at him. Guile kick into an ice sheath. Borotaber blocked the kick, and Daedric falls hard onto the dance floor holding his foot. He crawls away from Borotaber, trying to separate himself from his foe. Meanwhile, Borotaber is heaving fireballs towards Daedric. The last rolls to his left, narrowly avoiding one, and forward rolls away to avoid another. Borotaber is going to light this club on fire if he's not careful. Daedric avoids a third fireball, diving behind the DJ table, and when he peeks out over the top of it, he sees not a fireball, but a massive ice statue being amassed in midair that is suddenly hurled in his direction. Glacial clone. Daedric, though, just dives away from the table at the last possible second. Record to the face. Daedric threw the vinyl record like a frisbee right into the face of Borotaber. Double dagger slice to Borotaber's throat. It was the opening Daedric needed, and he follows up spinning super kick. Daedric decapitated Borotaber's head clean off his body, and the Prince of Fire and Ice's dead, lifeless body falls to the floor with a thud as Daedric advances to the semi-finals with Mathia, Evoco, and Whisper. Whoo-wee. And we're not stopping, because we're going straight into the first fucking semi-final, folks. This is it. The first semi-final. It is Mathia in the morgue versus Ivoko. Matt versus Lena. First semi-final. Who's ready for this shit? I know I am. Gods have perished and warriors have fallen as we come to the penultimate round of Death Strike. Will the shadows roam free, or will the protector of Heimdall get one step closer to his true purpose? Mathia slowly steps through the doors to the morgue, observing the cold steel all around before running his hands over various sharp instruments. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed one of the drawers slightly moving, as if something is inside. He moves forward, incredibly wary, before inching the door forward and opening the drawer, but there's nothing there. Shadow kick to the back of the head. Ivoko fooled the bio-android there, delivering a brutal super kick that sends him flying headfirst into the steel. Mathia is dazed on his knees as Ivoko tries for another, but he manages to get out of the way. The sheer impact of the kick nearly caves in the steel. Mathia backs up, dodging right and left before swinging a hanging light into Ivoko's face, breaking it into pieces as glass goes flying everywhere. The Dark One staggers back himself, trying to avoid the flying glass before he's gripped around the throat and chokeslammed down onto the operating table. All the wind goes out of the Dark One as Mathia keeps the grip around his throat, raining down hammer fists with his other arm as he tries to inflict pain and punishment on his foe. Ivoko scrambles, raking at the eyes and clawing at anything he can get his hands on, but he can't even scratch Mathier's ocular vision before a mammoth fist knocks him for a loop. Mathia keeps the grip around Ivoko's throat before he looks for a tool to inflict more punishment. He finds a surgical saw. Mathia pulls Ivoko up for a moment to slam him down once more before rearing the saw up and meaning to slide it down the Shadow Maker's skull, but saw only meets metal as Ivoko manages to vanish into the shadows. Mathia looks around trying to find out where he's gone, but there he appears underneath him, tripping him up as his jaw slams into the steel, which stuns him, allowing Ivoko to nail him with a brutal kick that sends him to the floor, still holding the saw until it embeds itself in his face. The blade just misses Mathia's eye, but he's still reeling in pain, slowly pulling it from his face as fluid leaks down the side. Steam jets from his ventilation shafts as he rushes forward feet first, but he only gets a few feet before hands drag him into the ground. Mathia tries to struggle, but he's trapped by the shadows before a mammoth spear sends him flying back into the steel drawers. Mathia tries to stand, but a sickening knee to the jaw nearly knocks him out cold before Ivoko readies himself for the end. He raises his arm. A shadow underneath Mathia rises and begins to transform into that mighty hammer we come to know so well. Mathia only having the strength to raise the arm, still holding the saw, before shooting it forward, but Ivoko manages to dodge the deadly fist. The Shadow Maker feels the hammer in his hands for a moment before raising it high as the fist ricochets off the wall, flying back, Ivoko catching it as he slams it into Mathia's skull. That may as well have been driven through his brain because he's slowly fading away. He cannot defend himself against the hammer as it slams into his chest, and the bio-android fades into the shadows. Fatality. Your winner and first finalist of the Death Strike tournament is Ivoko. Mike Lane makes it to the final. And we're moving on to the story. Chapter 7. Death Strike continues. He's dead. He's finally dead. With the battle concluding, Zeldor saps into frame, standing over the broken body of Mathia. His eyes are widened in surprise as he looks around the viscera-strewn location. The morgue is definitely the right place for this kind of destruction. Why is this not over? He muses angrily. A large screen before him flashes, announcing the next round of the competition. No! He bellows. This cannot be! From the shadows, Whisper, Ivoko, and Daedric emerge. There's a sense of curiosity about them. None of them know what Zelda knows, but they want to. You're angry, Whisper inquires. Why? Ivoko finds it curious too. Why do you expect the tournament to be over because that creature is dead? He asks. Zeldor begins pacing, his hands on his hips. He knows something isn't right. In his mind, once Mathia had died, the tournament would surely conclude. After all, the Ashen created it. They're responsible, aren't they? I've learned so much and have such little time to share it, Zeldor announces, but decides to share nonetheless. I thought this tournament was created by the Ashen to seek out the universe's best warriors and murder them, so they could invade on their planets as they did mine. Daedric steps forward, his surprise strewn across his face like Meteor across the morgue. But yet the finals are scheduled bar one, he muses, looking at his next opponent. Whisper. Precisely, Zelda confirms. I don't understand it. I was certain the tournament would end with the death of their chosen warrior. Everyone stands in silence for a moment. There's an air of confusion and trepidation in the air. Death Strike continues, but for Zeldor it should have been over. What now? Whisper inquires with a deep grunt. Zeldor thinks about it for a moment. Even he's a loss. Interplanetary travel, he remarks with a stoic nod. There's only one place left for me to go. I'm afraid that means I'll have to bid you all adieu. Zap. Wait! Daedric shouts as he vanishes into the ether. What about us? Evoco queries. He's a typical god, Daedric. He cares not for anyone but himself. With that said, Evoco grunts and walks away, leaving Whisper and Daedric alone in preparation for their fight that comes next in the sewer. So, Zeldor was confident that the Ashen created this tournament so that their chosen warrior could destroy all the warriors of the universe, allowing them to easily invade and destroy their planets. If the toughest people weren't there, it would be easy pickings. But now Meteor's dead. And Zelda doesn't understand why the Death Strike tournament, if created by the Ashen, is still continuing. And we'll rejoin the story very shortly, but for now it's the final, semi-final. The Shepherd continues his quest to guide the souls of the fallen, but he finds resistance now from a man desperate to bring back his race from the darkness. We hear only splashing footsteps for a moment before the Whisper emerges from the darkness of the sewer tunnels. Carefully brushing his hands against the stone walls, he barely feels the rush of wind before a steel arrow slices through the water inches from where he once was. Arrow after arrow begin to rain down as Whisper dodges them with grace before throwing a soul upwards in the direction of his attacker. A green explosion crumples stones above as Daedric leaps down, clinging onto the ceiling before diving down on to Whisper. He takes him by surprise and flips him down into the water. Whisper struggles as Daedric tries to wrap his hands around his throat and choke him out in the sewage, but a quick soul explosion staggers Daedric back, allowing Whisper to kick him away and breathe once more. The elf isn't deterred though, as he rushes again at the Shepherd, who catches his charge, throwing him into a nearby wall. Daedric slams hard into the concrete, trying to pull himself back up before Whisper begins throwing soul after soul at the elf, as green explosions send him further back into the concrete, threatening to bring down the entire tunnel around them. A pair of souls pull the hurting Daedric out of the rubble before Whisper begins to light into him with flowing strikes, a hard elbow to the jaw, a floating knee to the ribs, before a spinning backhand sends him collapsing into the water. Souls pluck Daedric up out of the water once more, throwing him backwards into the wall before Whisper begins summoning an extra large soul to truly harm the elf. Daedric slips out of the soul's grip though, pulling out two knives and slamming them together in a shockwave that disrupts Whisper's equilibrium before he rushes forward and drives one of them into Whisper's ear. The Shepherd screams in pain, blood pouring from his ear as he can't concentrate from the pain and the disrupted shockwave running through his head. Daedric punishes him with brutal strikes, delivering a sickening knee that sends blood pouring down his face before pulling out a thick wire and wrapping it around his throat. I like that. That's a nod to Corvus. Before dragging him down into the water and trying to drown him. Whisper struggles under the wire, trying to break free of the choke, but Daedric has it in tight and is ringing his head. Sorry. Whisper slowly begins to lose consciousness, going limp underneath Daedric's hold, where he's lifted onto the walk prey and prepared for the honourable end. Daedric places the limp Whisper on his knees, places his other knife to his neck, and prepares to tear it open. A green energy explodes underneath Whisper's blindfold. Dozens of souls pull Daedric back, pummeling him with strikes and blows before tearing the knife from his hands and driving it through his knee. Daedric screams out in agonizing pain as Whisper plucks a knife from his ear, green spectral energy healing the wound before flicking his fingers. A spectral arm and claws begin to tear Daedric to pieces, chunks of flesh and bone flying all over the place before Whisper takes his soul. Fatality. Whisper guides another lost soul to paradise as he moves into the final round of Death Strike. That's right, your final is Evoko versus Whisper. Woo. We're near the end now, folks. Not far. A couple chapters and the final. So we know now it's Dawson versus Lane in the final. It is Whisper versus Evoko. Hope you guys have enjoyed the show so far. Let's move on to chapter 8. Earth, the final frontier. Flash. With a zap of lightning, Zelda arrives in the very last place you'd expect to find him. Earth, his final frontier. The journey was hard and has taken its toll on him. He is exhausted and barely able to stand, instead slumped on the concrete outside a large building. With Zelda grounded and exhausted outside of the building, there are sounds of fighting heard inside, before we see Vigor thrown unceremoniously into the streets. The guards looking worse for wear as they close the door behind him. The jack of all senses staggers to his feet, looking up at the building before walking away, wiping the dirt from his jacket as he does. "Wait!" Zelda calls out. Vigor turns to look at him, his eyebrows raised. Zelda tries to get back to his feet, only Vigor seemingly rushes to his aid. What compels him? Only he knows. "You look different," Zelda says with a sense of pride. "Happy." The jack of all senses smiles. "Do I know you?" Vigor asks. "I feel like we're connected." Zelda chuckles to himself. "For some time I felt a pull to this planet. A cosmic hand around my throat, dragging me here," Zelda says with a shake of the head. "I couldn't figure out why, but now everything seems to be in perspective." "I don't understand," Vigor says in confusion. He releases Zelda, who finally manages to stand on his own 2 feet. The god places a hand on Vigor's shoulder. "My name is Zelda, and I am the creator of Eden," he announces, much to Vigor's utter shock. The Principality almost stumbles at the reveal. "I am your creator, Vigor." "Good God," he mutters in shock. "You exist?" "I failed you, Vigor. I failed you all. I let the Ashen destroy Eden because I thought I couldn't intervene. Now I understand Earth is godless because they did intervene?" Vigor nods. "Yahweh, their Christian god, intervened in the apocalypse and stopped it. He caused something they call the fall of the gods, and that led to their collective deaths," he reveals. Zelda lowers his head in shame. "I'm sorry," he says shamefully to Vigor. "Will you come back home with me and make this right? I promise I will reclaim Eden." Vigor thinks about it for a moment and steps backwards. There's a sense around him that Zelda immediately understands. "I can't," he says. "The Ashen are coming to invade Earth. I couldn't stop them on Eden because our planet was full of peace. No one knew how to fight. Here on Earth they stand a chance of repelling the threat. They stand a chance of surviving, and I must do what I can to help them succeed." The god nods in respect, stepping away from Vigor. "I wish you luck," Zelda says, summoning the lightning for his return trip. Flash, and he's gone. Woo! There we go. Eden is Vigor's home planet. Eden is Vigor's home planet. Once a peaceful utopia till the Ashen turned it into that. Vigor just met his god. Whew. Alright. So, before I go any further, I think it's worth shouting out the match writers for this event because they are many. Well, they are few, but they did so much. So, Jordan wrote Sterling versus Maytheor, Barkada versus King, Zagathor versus Mordecai, and Brugge versus Lord Vega. Zach wrote Draco versus Evoko, Ick versus Whisper, Nekahual versus Daedric, and Alex wrote Spark versus Borutabor. Jesse wrote all 4 of the second round matches, and both semi-final matches were written by Zach. The final is mine. Thank you very much, guys. Zach, Alex, Jordan, and Jesse for writing these matches and helping make this happen. All those matches had to be written in really short notice because we didn't know who was going to be in the final, and we had to wait for role plays to come in before I could make decisions. So thank you so much for taking care of it. Really do appreciate it. But let's do a final, shall we? The Death Strike final commences right here at Day of the Dead. You may be full of souls. That doesn't mean you have one, Ivoko warns. Whisper chuckles. I'm going to send you back to the darkness, where you belong, he replies. They charge forward, lifting legs and arms to test each other. Ivoko leaps with a knee strike that sends Whisper flailing backwards. He quickly rushes forward, left, right, elbow, elbow, ethereal bond. A soul leaps out of Whisper's body to protect him from the next strike, only Ivoko grabs it, slamming it down into a gravestone. Whisper steps out with a flurry of kicks. High, low, leg sweep, down goes Ivoko. He leaps back up and jumps a secondary leg sweep from the shadows. Ivoko vanishes, rising out of the shadow behind Whisper and kicking him square in the back of the head. Whisper stumbles forward, turning around, shadow kick, no, Whisper slams down across the leg, crack, you could hear the bone fracture, ethereal bond, I think it's ethereal bonds actually, but whatever. A soul leaps out of Whisper, grabs Ivoko and slams him over the soulborn's head, right into a fucking gravestone. Ivoko's head smashes through the concrete, revealing black ooze that leaks from the top of his mask. Whisper walks over to finish this, but Ivoko is too fast, grabbing a candle from the ground and ramming it straight into the covered eye of the soulborn. He screams in agony, stumbling backwards and grabbing onto anything nearby. He pulls an angel statue off a grave and pierces the wing straight through an onrushing Ivoko. Holy shit, he rips it out violently, slamming it over his head for good measure. The Shadowmaker is reeling now. Spectral port. Whisper launches a soul at Ivoko as he rises, then switches into it with a leaping punch that slams the Shadowmaker into a nearby wall. As concrete flies, the soulborn stumbles away and charges. Darkness beckons. The shadows grab him. Multiple hands reach out of the darkness and stop Whisper from running. Spear! Ivoko spears Whisper to the fucking ground. Both men are down. The Shadowmaker rolls away, coughing up black blood inside his mask. This has been brutal so far. They both know what's on the line and get back to their feet. Ivoko reaches out and grabs the concrete cross, ripping it from the ground. Whisper looks likewise to his right and snatches a tombstone from his. They step forward. Tombstone to the head. No. Ivoko ducks. Cross to the chest. No. Whisper ducks. They both run at each other. Boom! A massive concrete explosion as both of them connect in the middle of the Day of the Dead graveyard. They both drop what remains of the concrete. Whisper, though, seems to have come out worse and is charged backwards into an empty grave by Ivoko. The Shadowmaker stomps away at his face and chest, driving him into the mud with every kick. Whisper, though, in desperation, reaches out and grabs mud from the side of the grave, flinging it into the face of Ivoko. That blinds him. He gets up, stepping up Ivoko to leap out of the grave with expert athleticism. You're dead and buried now, Whisper hisses, walking away from the shadows. Ivoko appears from behind Whisper, coming out of his shadow, and he drags him fucking into it. Oh my god, where have they gone? They both fucking vanished. Suddenly, they appear falling from the sky. German suplex. Ivoko suplexes Whisper into the fucking ground. Holy shit. Surely this is it. That must have broken his fucking neck. Ivoko gets back to his feet and signals for the end. Whisper rises somehow. Barely. Dark hammer. Dark hammer. Whisper's shadow becomes a giant hammer and lends itself to Ivoko. No. Ethereal bond. Souls fly out of Whisper's body to protect him. All of them blocking the shadow hammer and forcing it backwards right down on Ivoko. Whisper's shadow just slammed down on Ivoko. He slams into the floor and releases the hammer. The Shadowmaker rises. Finish him to the herd. Whisper fires a horde of souls at Ivoko. They rip him to fucking shreds. Oh my god, there's black flesh flying in every which direction. Whisper absorbs Ivoko's soul. Whisper has done it. Whisper has won. Death Strike. Whew. Congratulations. Congratulations, bud. Wow. I'll come into the chat and I'll talk to you guys about the tournament later, so hopefully you've all enjoyed yourself. But we still have some story to go. Congratulations to Dawson. Congratulations to Whisper. Whisper survived the tournament. Good job. But we now move on to Chapter 9. It's called Eviction. Zeldor returned home with such fervour that when he zapped into his palace in the sky, he became heavy, barreling through a bookcase and slamming into the wall. His wife, Santecha, rushed to his aid. Zeldor, what on Eden is going on? She queries in utter shock and confusion. He can barely speak, moving himself to sit upright and catch his breath. Everything is a lie, he grunts, slamming his head backwards into what's left of the shelf behind him. I don't understand, Santecha questions, rubbing his shoulder. I can't explain. I can't even fathom an explanation, dear. We've sat and watched as these wretched Ashen have destroyed our world, he bemoans with great sadness. That ends now. Santecha immediately stands in defiance. No, she roars. You simply cannot interfere. It's against our creation, she reminds him. Zeldor barely finds a way to stand, but does so to meet her at her feet. It doesn't matter, he retorts swiftly. I've travelled our universe, Santecha. I've spoken to warriors from 16 of the 18 planets that exist within it. We aren't the first to be invaded by the Ashen. No, Skya has already been dominated by their presence and left as dust in their wake. That revelation stuns his wife. When they're finished here, Earth is their next port of call. I thought Death Strike was a competition to understand the power of the universe so they can invade them all, but I was wrong, he admits, now pacing. I was dead wrong. He walks over to his wife and places both hands on her shoulders, looking her in the eyes. The planet Earth is godless, he says carefully. They broke the rules and suffered the consequences, but Earth still exists. They sacrificed their lives for those they created. Please, Zeldor. No, she whispers. I love our denizens as much as you do, but I cannot lose you. Zeldor leans in and pulls her close into a hug. They take a moment to feel each other, to breathe, before the god pulls away carefully. I want Eden back, he says sternly, his eyes wide and heartfelt. I can't sit idly by and allow the Ashen to destroy us further. I'm going to evict them from our planet, Santecha. She looks sad, but nods, as if she understands, despite her protest, just exactly what Zeldor must do. You understand that if you evict them from Eden, you will subsequently push forward their timetable, she reminds him. Earth will suffer as a consequence. He walks over to his closet, putting out a large sword that when he touches illuminates with lightning. That's if there's any of them left to invade, Zeldor says with a deep breath. Let's go to war, my dear. The final chapter, ignore the image, it's wrong. Chapter 10 is called Completion. Somewhere in the universe, a large glass tower watches the tournament having unfolded. A woman enters the fray, again, her appearance shrouded in a mysterious dark cloak. She's holding some kind of book, in which she intends to read from. The competition was a success, she remarks, thumbing through the pages. 15 warriors perished in their chase of excellence, and 1 survived to be crowned champion of Death Strike. He will be a strong ally in what's to come. There's silence, an eerie silence, only it becomes clear that it's only silence to us. She, on the other hand, can hear everything. Zeldor received our invitation. He investigated as we suspected he would. Interestingly enough, he's now fighting a war with the Ashen on Eden, she says with a chuckle. As you suspected. The temptation was too great. Suddenly, with another flash, the Death Strike winner appears before them. He can't move, in fact, he's completely frozen, forced to drop to his knees by some unfathomable power. The woman steps closer to him, standing before him in whatever made him bow. Congratulations on your victory, she says with a stern tone. It is with great pleasure that I am able to see to you with your prize. What is it? What is this? Whisper asks with concern. This is the glass tower, and your victory earns you a mission of the utmost importance, she tells him. I just want to go back to my planet, Whisper pleads. I just want to go home. The woman laughs. No, she growls. You're going to Earth, Whisper. But rest assured, your planet's survival is guaranteed due to your victory. There'll be no invasion of the Ashen on the Spire, you have my word, she promises. All you need to do is go to Earth and complete a mission. Whisper is suddenly allowed to stand. He nods in agreement, carefully and with thought. If I do what you ask and complete this mission, you'll send me home and keep my planet safe? He asks. She nods. Now, let me tell you about a man on Earth, she continues, as we conclude Death Strike. There we go. One hell of a show, if I don't say so myself. I hope you guys enjoyed the story and its connection to OSW lore. I know I lied and pretended that it had nothing to do with it. It was a complete one-off and blah blah blah, but it was never meant to be that. So I really do hope you enjoyed it. The connection to what's going on with Vigor and the Ashen and the planets. There's a bigger picture involved, and I can't wait for you to find out more of it as we head towards Red Snow. It's obviously got its role in the end of the volume too, so hopefully you have enjoyed the show. I have the top three. I don't want to say who they are, but I do have the top three. I know who the top three were. It was very difficult to choose. So yeah, well, I'm gonna leave it at that. And what I will do is this: